Hey everyone, it's ItsLlamaLlama. Just wanted to make a quick video on GT7 tuning options and physics. There's a few things I wanted to cover, so I'll try to just speed through this a little bit. Everyone knows everything oversteers due to the change of the physics of the game. Front-wheel drive cars feel amazing, um, and I think that Grand Turismo did that so it would be a little bit more fair to controller players because not everyone has a wheel, but also to increase the skill gap. So this game is going to reward people who have very precise throttle input. Um, but luckily, suspension tuning um, and really tuning of the car works the same. Um, a global difference would be that the game moved back to PP um, tuning. So the combination of parts that you put together is going to be important. The tuning, I'll make a separate video. I'll have how to go through tuning, what's important, what's not, what you should do first. I'll go through all of that in another video. I was going to do a video earlier for Gran Turismo Sport, but since this was coming out, I figured I'd save my notes and compare. A few tips. Throttle maintenance must be done with like 1% throttle. Like very minimal. Anything over like 5% you're going to spin out. The top bit of throttle will make any car oversteer. High horsepower cars will instantly spin if you're like over 50%. So be careful with the ends of the throttle input. The ABS is different. ABS is more strict in this game versus sport. Sport, you can be flat on the brake pedal and still steer the car. So the ABS let you really turn in regardless of what you were doing. So with this game, you have to be a little bit more careful with ABS default. So if you are trying to trail brake, you have to set it up a little better. I do recommend increasing the engine sound so you can hear the engine rev up and you can hear the sense of the rear end loading since you have to do it ever so slightly. As far as tuning, a lower diff, a longer gear set, and a late apex style will probably help you. So it's good to adjust your driving for the car for the track, but keep those things in mind. Um, some more tips, be careful with downshifting. Everything seems to be spinning out on downshifts. What I have been doing at some cars is save the last downshift for when I'm already in the middle of the corner to help tighten it up. That way that I'm not dropping a gear while still braking and overspinning the tires, causing the rear end to slide. Um, but of course, you can tune around that as well, but that's just an easy, quick tip that you can do on the fly. And lastly, TCS levels are closer than GT Sport. TCS1, traction control 1, is now intrusive, so the car will bog and bounce. It will cut throttle, so it'll interrupt the chassis. Before, you can leave it on TCS1 and you wouldn't feel the car bog or cut throttle or anything, but now it does. So it seems less useful now. As far as tires, the tire models seem overall less grippy. Um, if you, I'm sure all of you who have done license tests on sport hards have noticed that everything is spinning out. Um, Race tires tend to rotate a little better, so there's overall less grip. But it seems like all cars have better front grip, uh, and that's what's causing the rotation. So maybe a strong front bar. There's a lot of different ways to tune. There's a lot of ways to tune around that, but essentially there's a lot more front grip because I feel like the car pulls in. All cars pull in a whole lot more in the middle of a corner. Um, so it's like trail braking isn't as needed. Depends on what's going on, but um, there seems to be more grip in the rain and in dirt, especially dirt. I'm sure a lot of you can attest to that while doing the license tests, compared to sport at least. And heat seems to be considered, although Gran Turismo 7 doesn't have any measurement of heat. This is very noticeable on high horsepower cars. As soon as you start sliding, the rear end spins up, and it takes longer for those high horsepower cars to settle down. So you can apply that minimal throttle input to load the rear. So something to consider. I think this is going to affect endurance racing and tire wear and fuel, but time will tell. There's a whole lot more testing that needs to be done. So the main point of this video is to talk about the ride height, and I think that's a big issue. It's a little backwards broken, if you will, in this game. What I mean is that when the car is set to what is considered low height, and I'll go ahead and show you now, when it's a low height, the car reacts as if though it is tall. What I mean is that when these numbers are lower, the steering sensitivity, the steering is less sensitive. It takes longer to transition from left to right, like if you're going through a slalom. And there's more cornering ability, and that's usually reserved for a car that's taller because there's more load. There's a taller car turning over to its side. There's more load on that tire. But conversely, if you have the height with a higher number, then that feels like a lowered car. The transitions are faster, the steering's more precise, and there's less cornerability because there's less rolling. So I'll go ahead and do a test in just a moment. I did want to explain that rake still works like it normally would. So right now, looking at this, despite me saying that ride height is backwards, this is raked nose down. So this will provide more front grip. So what I'm going to do for this test is I'm just going to do 5 from the top. And we're going to go around some corners. And we're going to look at the steering input. So actually we're going to first do the steering input here. And I normally don't use this view, but just so you can kind of see a little bit about the steering. So this is at 60 miles an hour, and I'm just going to let go of the throttle. And I'm just going to use the same motion. So it's sudden, and we're at 35 miles an hour, and you can see the car changes directions pretty well. And now we're going to try the opposite. And we'll just go 5 from the bottom just to be fair, because we shouldn't be using extremes. And again, I'm going to go ahead and turn around, and we're going to go to the 60 miles an hour, and at 35 we're going to change the way that we do our input. So we're at 60, so there's a bounce there. Now it's actually oversteering, like there's more load. And we can't do that either. Alright, so let's try at 35 miles an hour. This is close enough. We're going to do the slow turns. You see the car kind of like bounce, 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 instead of just it being left, right, left, right, left, right. It's kind of going to the left, then bouncing, then going to the right, and then bouncing. I think the view on the outside I mean, it looks great with what the game calls a lower ride height. Actually, since we have this open, let's do one more test. Let's do a cornering test. I mean, we did the slalom, or quote-unquote slalom, just a second ago. And by the way, all steering aids are off. The only thing that's on is ABS default. Always keep that on, in my opinion. I think a lot of people who race at a higher level also do that as well. So half throttle, and it's wanting to spin there. We're gonna go a couple more corners down the road. There's a nice little left-hand bend coming up, and that's a good way to. It's almost like a turning circle. So let's see if we can do. If we can accelerate with a steady steering input and make that corner. So we're gonna start here. Really? All right, car. I did apply I think I applied a bass tune to this, but regardless, I'm not going to change any other setting. Okay, I went slower to the corner than I normally would. And I didn't even reach the apex at the top of that corner, and it was already sliding. And I was going slower than I normally would. Aero doesn't seem to affect the cars until they're about 80 miles an hour. Some food for thought. So that wasn't even fast enough to engage aero. Alright, so let's try the opposite. And by the way, I did an outside test. I tried the middle, and it seemed to be in between the two. So it's not like the a middle number setting was better. It just seemed to get better as the car looked taller. Which, by the way, this looks ridiculous. I'll see if I can get another view. Just 4x4 flying down Tsukuba. It's really strange. So understeer there. Have 75% throttle, then it spins, but it spins slower. Understeer there. Alright, so we're here. That was my mistake. I did that wrong. Does anyone ever drive this track backwards? That'd be really strange. Alright, let's try that again. So I think we're starting about the same speed as the last test. Alright, at the cones, going from one point to the next point, and I'm feeling some resistance, some understeer. It rotates slower as it's easier to catch. I could be more precise in my throttle input, but I'm also trying to narrate and think about what we're discussing here. Some understeer there, and as soon as I get on throttle, oversteer. So definitely a more stable ride. Let's see, can we get a profile view of that? Look at that beast. 4x4 like no other. Looks so stupid. Alright, so let me know what you think about that. It looks ridiculous, but it seems to be better. Rake, again, does work like it should, and it looks like it should. The numbers and everything, the lower the front number, that means the lower the front ride height. It's obscure. I did want to add a couple of other bits, sort of modifications. Some key important points. Brake bias, power level, and diff ratio. You now have to buy it. It's no longer free. Ballast is now back in the game. I'll go into tuning. We'll explain what that is. A very helpful thing to buy that costs almost nothing, and it doesn't affect your PP at all. Your PP will stay the same. That sounds funny. Steering angle adapter. It increases your steering ratio, so it helps you catch things faster. So buy that. You need that. Nitro's back in the game, whatever. Chassis stiffness is back. It helps to tighten up the car so it feels more precise, tends to be more precise on throttle. That's probably helpful in this case. That's body rigidity. Nitrous is back. I think I mentioned that already. Yeah. Alright, so the last thing, aero. This car, the 350Z, comes with a base 20 front, 20 rear aero. Cars like the Camaro ZL1 have no front end add-on, only underbody and rear wing. Every car, if you add a front lip, it adds 0 to 100 for downforce. And then when you add a rear diffuser, not the valance, like the little plastics in the back of the bumper, the actual rear diffuser, if you see a rear diffuser, that adds 50 to 100 front and back. And then plus the 20 that the car already comes with, that's where we get the max 220 for this car. Side skirts do nothing. The wing height and end plates do nothing either. As far as the wing, if you choose an A or B wing, it gives you 50 to 100 additional aero. And if you use a custom one, it gives you 50 to 200. So 200 plus the 100 for the diffuser plus the 20 base aero, that's the 320 we're getting here. There's cars like the BRZ, the stock aero 00, so their max in the rear is like 300. And then there's cars like the Camaro ZL1 that have no front end, is going to have much less option in the front downforce. So some things to consider. Let me know what you think about the ride height trick. It's broken. I don't know what you want to call it. The ride height discrepancy. Let me know what you think about it. Leave your comments, likes, please subscribe. Let me know what kind of cars you test. Let me know what kind of setups you have for diff. I'm running 8.8 for everything and then increasing the brake sensitivity as needed. I haven't even really touched this yet, but just changing the ride height alone did improve the stability. The car will always rotate because GT7 will do that, but it felt a whole lot better with the higher number. So let me know what you think.